Hi, welcome to my review of the Specialised Hard 2014. It's a year-old bike. It's looking a bit tatty these days. I don't ride it very much anymore. It's just my commuter now. The reason for that is I bought the Hard Rock with the intention of sort of getting fit, riding a little bit gravel roads, not doing much downhill, single track or anything too extreme. I still don't do anything too extreme, but I certainly am enjoying having a nicer bike than the Hard Rock now. But it did cost me, this thing on the wall did cost me 3 times as much, so I found you definitely get what you pay for. However, I spent a year riding around on this bike. I rode up a lot of gravel roads and a lot of steep tracks, and I rode down a lot of rocky grade 3s, so I was fine on it. Feel like I know the bike inside out, so I just thought I'd put a review up here for people who are thinking about buying this bike. This review is going to be really aimed at people looking for an entry-level bike, haven't been mountain biking much before, and are just thinking about buying a Hard Rock. This is the 2014. I don't suspect they've changed too much with the 2015, but they may have changed a few little things. But yeah, right. So let's start at the front of the bike. Okay, first thing, in 2014, the bike did not come with rock shocks. The bike came with Suntour XR forks. After about 11 months, I wore them out. Like I say, I rode this bike a lot, so don't think you're gonna, unless you ride. I mean, I was riding 100 k's a week on trails, and it was half up, so 50 k's of downhill, single track. Really not what this bike's designed for, but yeah. So I wore my Suntours out pretty quickly. It wasn't worth getting them repaired, so I replaced them with these rock shocks. Now, these cost considerable amount compared to the value of the bike. They're pretty much half the value of the bike on their own. In all honesty, they don't perform much better than the Suntours did. They're slightly nicer, slightly damped, slightly less, I guess, pogo sticky, but really not a massive difference. I think they're half a kg lighter, the guy at the shop told me, so I save half a kg in weight, but also at the same time there's a lot more flex in this fork, so I noticed that. They're fine, but the Suntours were basically the same. So what I'm trying to say is the Suntour forks, if you're a beginner biker and you're not doing anything crazy, then they're going to be fine for you. One thing that wasn't fine with the initial spec, the front disc. It came in 2014, the Hard Rock came with a 160mm disc. Like I say, I wasn't planning on doing much downhill when I bought the bike, but then I discovered it's quite good fun, and why not? So I started riding, nothing too hard, but I was braking a lot more. Turns out when I first started mountain biking, my braking technique wasn't great, so I was feathering the brakes, heating up the discs. So pretty quickly I glazed 2 sets of pads when they overheat, which basically means throw the pads away and start again. Pads are not super cheap, so I spoke to a guy at the bike shop. He said, look, easiest solution, get a bigger disc. So once I went to a 180mm disc, didn't cost too much, pretty easy to install, and that solved that problem straight away. But yeah, I guess a little bit disappointing that for a big bike, I mean, I'm 6 foot, combined weight of me and the bike is probably just over 100 kilos, 200 and something pounds. Yeah, so maybe for a lighter person, a 160mm disc would be fine, but for me, it's not a big enough disc. But I mean, like I said, this is not really a downhill bike, so take it or leave it, I guess. Okay, these are not the original grips. Tektro brakes, they have been fantastic. Can't fault them at all. They've been really, really good. I've had to bleed them a couple of times, but apart from that, they've been great. Shimano Shifters, again, fine, just what you'd expect. It's only now that I've gone to a better bike with SLX running gear and shifters that I've even noticed, that I even realise how bad these are, but they're not bad at all. They're fine. They're an entry-level piece of kit, but they're fine. Okay, they'll do exactly what you want them to do. And the brakes actually are great. They're absolutely great. They're just as good as the brakes on this new bike. Okay, what else we're going to tell you? Yeah, the rear brake disc was 160mm as well. Doesn't really matter on the rear. Doesn't take as much load, so that was never a problem. I left that. What else we got? The running gear, we've got 3x8, I think it is. It's what was it? Shimano Acera. It's fine, nothing wrong with it. It constantly needs sort of tuning. It's all a bit slack, but like I say, I've ridden this bike a lot. It's been great. A lot of chain slap, I noticed. So we've got the old lizard skin on here to try and protect the frame bit, but an awful lot of chain slap. But I mean, it's an entry level. It's an entry level bike, and so this chain will definitely do the job for you. Yeah, yeah, it's great. A couple of things about this bike. One thing that was outstanding. This is not the original saddle. I've actually swapped this saddle with a friend of mine because her saddle's really, really uncomfy. This is off a Merida bike, so she's taken the saddle off this because I've got my new Giant saddle, and the saddle on this is so comfy. It was really, really, really great. I rode this bike for hundreds and hundreds of hours, never once had a sore arse. So they've obviously put a bit of money into the saddle. The other thing that I noticed, now looking back, this bike came with these fast track tyres, flat jackets. Actually, this is still one of the original tyres. I've been through 3 or 4 tyres, but I guess they're just working their way to the back. Yeah, now these tyres are expensive if you go buy them. They're 50, 60 Kiwi dollars. They're not the cheapest tyres in the world. I didn't really think about this until I bought this. Now this thing came with these Maxxis Ardent tyres, which look better, but actually they're really, really thin. Within about a month of buying this, multi-$1,000 bike, I'd ripped a hole in the sidewall of one of these tyres. So yeah, I took it off to change it, and they're really thin. So the guy at the bike shop said basically they put them on to save weight. They're just a low budget tyre, whereas the tyres that Specialized gave me lasted me months and months, and they're a full spec bike shop tyre. That's great. They've put a bit of money in there. Again, I didn't realise that until I went out and bought a better bike. If you are buying this bike and you are riding downhill though, I'll give you one recommendation. This is the one thing that made this bike better for me, and so much better. Okay, so it came with fast track tyres. They're fine. They roll really, really nicely. If you're going uphill especially, they're great. But I decided I would put on this tyre, which is a Maxxis High Roller it's called. It's actually a downhill tyre. This changed the bike completely for downhill riding. This made it like a different bike. I thought changing the forks would have a good effect, but this, changing the tyre, basically felt like a new bike, and for going downhill it was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So if you are buying this bike and you are planning on riding it downhill, go with this fast track for a wee while, but once you start getting a bit more confident and you want to just push it, I didn't realise that I didn't have the grip until I put this on, if that makes sense. I was fine on the fast tracks, the bike never slid, and I was like, oh, this is great, and then I put this on and bang, different world. Yeah, I don't know if you've got any questions, post them and I'll try and answer. Basically, if you're getting into mountain biking and you want a nice bike to ride, you're not going to be doing anything over grade 3, then you can't go wrong. This has done 3,500 Ks with me in a year. Look, I've taken the paint off the bloody. We've ridden a lot, me and this girl. Yeah, couldn't recommend it enough. Although saying that, if you do get addicted, go and buy one of these. Hey, enjoy your biking.